Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving straight into gender incongruence. We're going to unpack the fascinating psychological and sociological theories surrounding this subject, using a multi-lens approach. We'll be relying on the latest academic frameworks to really understand how different fields, from biology all the way to sociology, attempt to explain human gender identity.
Here is our roadmap for today. 1. What is gender incongruence? 2. The biological lens. 3. Social cultural views. 4. The queer theory critique. And finally, 5. Biology versus construct.
Section 1. What is gender incongruence?
So at its core, gender incongruence is defined as experiencing a mismatch between one's experienced gender and the sex they were assigned at birth. But what's really interesting here is the explicit terminology shift. Previously, the medical community used the term gender identity disorder. That older term has been intentionally scrapped and replaced by gender incongruence. And the crucial point to take away here is that this shift was made to actively discourage people from viewing this as a mental illness. Words matter, right? And this change in clinical language reflects a massive shift in how we understand gender diversity today.
But obviously, evaluating gender incongruence isn't just about reading a single definition out of a textbook. It's a highly complex framework. It means looking at strengths, limitations, and competing alternative explanations from multiple perspectives. So we're going to tackle this exact multi-layered evaluation step by step.
Section 2. The biological lens.
Okay, let's talk genetics. They undoubtedly play a role, but maybe not in the overly simplistic way you'd expect. Take this 2021 study by Ramirez and colleagues. They actually found differences in which genes are active, literally meaning which genes are switched on and off when comparing transgender people to cisgender people. Because this gene activation directly affects how the brain develops and what hormones are produced, it strongly suggests that gender identity is shaped by a really complex, interactive mix of biological factors. It's not just about finding some single isolated trans gene.
Building on that biology, there is also incredibly strong evidence for the benefits of hormone therapy. In a massive 2022 review of 91 different studies, researchers Dorr and Chion looked at individuals with gender incongruence taking recent treatments. What they found was that this therapy was linked to significantly fewer psychological difficulties. Now, they importantly noted that trans women should be aware of increased cardiac risks. That's a necessary caveat. But ultimately, medical intervention through this biological approach can offer profound psychological relief for the discomfort caused by gender incongruence.
However, we have to recognize that evaluating gender incongruence through a medical lens is highly socially sensitive territory. On the positive side, classifying it as a medical category completely removes the element of choice or blame, which we know can vastly improve an individual's mental well-being. But the negative impact? Slapping that label on it might make gender incongruence seem akin to an illness that strictly requires treatment. The big takeaway here is that researchers and clinicians walk a very fine line. They have to provide essential care without accidentally reinforcing damaging stereotypes.
Section 3. Social cultural views.
Now, if biological determinism was the whole story, we'd expect gender to look exactly the same across every society on Earth. But it doesn't. And this brilliantly illustrates the social cultural argument. Some cultures have long recognized more than just two genders. A prime example of this is the Fa'afafine and Fa'afatama of Samoa, which completely challenges the strict Western binary concept of just male and female. Furthermore, in modern Western societies, we're seeing a massive rise in people describing themselves as non-binary. This global cultural shift suggests that gender identity is actually much more of a social construction than a strict, unchangeable biological fact. The lived experience is constantly adapting to cultural changes.
Section 4. The queer theory critique.
So, where does queer theory fit in? It's a major philosophical framework used to challenge those rigid binary views of gender, but it definitely has its limitations. Drawing on Green's 2007 research, a key critique emerges. Queer theory often ignores the everyday reality for those who actually experience gender incongruence. The argument is that the theory is so high-level that it downplays the very real, tangible struggles that gender-diverse individuals face daily, like social inequality, healthcare access, and discrimination. So while queer theory is philosophically rich and great for academic debate, it might just be a bit too abstract to actually solve real-world problems.
Section 5. Biology versus construct.
Ultimately, psychologists are constantly debating the root causes of gender incongruence. On one side, you have the biological approach, suggesting that sex is determined by chromosomes, a role we see across all animals and plants.
This view traditionally sees behavior as fixed and binary, like the classic idea that testosterone biologically causes aggression. But on the opposing side, the social construct approach points out that biology is almost never perfectly black and white. This view prioritizes the lived experience, highlighting that many people simply don't identify with the sex they were assigned at birth, making gender beautifully diverse and entirely socially constructed.
So, who is right? Well, modern psychology often lands on what we call an interactionist reality. This essentially suggests that both positions hold truth. Yes, biological sex is a physiological fact, but gender, our lived experience, is a diverse social construct. The source material highlights a really fascinating example of this interaction. A biological male with androgen insensitivity syndrome, or AIS, may actually have XY chromosomes, but live entirely as a female. It perfectly demonstrates how undeniable biological factors can seamlessly blend with social realities to create our understanding of gender.
All right, we've covered a lot today. The genetics, the cultural shifts, the evaluations, and the philosophical critiques. But I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder as you continue your focused learning. If gender development truly is this incredibly complex interaction of nature and nurture, how should society adapt its institutions? I'm talking about our schools, our hospitals, our legal systems. How do we adapt them to fairly support both our biological realities and our diverse lived experiences? It's a huge question, for sure. But with the structured frameworks we unpacked today, you are now perfectly equipped to explore it. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.